I agreed to marry the city's most feared man to save my grandmother. I walked into his life expecting a monster, but I found his biggest secret instead. My grandmother's hands, the same ones that had taught me how to braid my hair and knead dough for roti, were now frail and paper-thin, lost in the starched white sheets of the hospital bed. The cancer was aggressive, the doctors said, using words like palliative and comfort. But then, one doctor mentioned a new experimental treatment in America. It was a long shot, a whisper of a chance, and it cost more money than my mother and I would see in 10 lifetimes. That whisper of hope was enough to kill me. For 3 days, I didn't sleep. My mother's eyes were permanently red-rimmed. We were a family adrift in a sea of grief and helplessness. My father was long gone, and we had no one. Then the offer came. It didn't arrive through a lawyer or a formal letter. It came through a distant family connection, a message delivered in a hushed, reverent tone. The Blackwood family had heard of our situation. Damian Blackwood was looking for a wife. The arrangement would be simple, a marriage in name only. In return, my grandmother's treatment, travel, and recovery, every single expense would be covered. The name Damian Blackwood echoed in our city like a peal of thunder. He was the CEO of Blackwood Industries, a monolith that had crushed or consumed every competitor in its path. But everyone knew that was only half the story. The whispers were darker. They spoke of the Blackwood syndicate, of deals made in shadows, of rivals who disappeared, and of a power that operated far beyond the law. They said he was ruthless, cold, and utterly terrifying. My mother was horrified. She cried, "We can't, Sophia. This is a deal with the devil. To give you to a man like that, it's not a marriage, it's a cage." I looked at her, then thought of my grandmother fading away in that hospital room. I replied, my voice hollow, "What's the alternative, Mom? We watch her die? I'd rather be in a cage than in a world without her." A week later, I was ushered into his office. The room was on the top floor of a skyscraper that pierced the clouds, a kingdom of glass and steel that looked down on the entire city. And then I saw him. The whispers didn't do him justice. Damian Blackwood was not just a man. He was a presence. He stood a head taller than any man I'd ever met, built with the solid grace of a predator. His suit was impossibly sharp, his raven black hair perfectly styled. But it was his eyes that held me captive. They were a startling, piercing emerald green, and they watched me with an unnerving stillness, as if he were cataloging every one of my fears. He didn't stand to greet me. He simply gestured to the chair opposite his massive desk. He said, his voice a low, gravelly baritone that sent a shiver down my spine. "You understand the terms." It wasn't a question. I replied, my hands clenched in my lap. "I do." He pushed a file across the desk. "Your grandmother is being transferred to a private suite at the city's best hospital tonight. A medical jet is being chartered for her flight to the Mayo Clinic. It leaves tomorrow morning. My doctors will oversee everything. She will have the best care in the world." Relief washed over me so intensely it made me dizzy. It was real. He continued, his emerald eyes never leaving mine. "We will be married in a private ceremony in 2 days. You will move into my home. You will be Mrs. Sophia Blackwood. You will attend functions with me. You will be loyal, discreet, and you will not ask questions about my business. In return, your family will be secure for life. Is that clear?" I just nodded, unable to speak. I was signing my life away, and he treated it with all the emotion of a corporate merger. The first few months of our marriage were an exercise in cold, silent opulence. I lived in his mansion, a sprawling fortress of marble and glass that felt more like a museum than a home. The staff were polite but distant, moving with a silent efficiency that made it clear they answered only to him. Damian was a ghost in his own house. He would leave before I woke and return long after I had retired to my separate wing. Our only interactions were at stage dinners or charity galas where I was expected to be a beautiful, silent accessory on his arm. In public, he was magnetic. His power was a palpable force, commanding respect and fear in equal measure. But at home, he was a void. He never raised his voice, never showed anger, never showed anything. And yet, I started to see things. I saw the way his jaw would clench when he was on a difficult phone call. I saw him one night in the library, staring at an old, faded photograph with an expression of such profound pain that it made my own heart ache. He upheld his end of the bargain with chilling efficiency. My grandmother's treatment was working miracles. My mother called me every day, her voice filled with a joy I hadn't heard in years. For them, I was a savior. For me, I was a beautifully decorated prisoner. The turning point came during a gala hosted by one of his business rivals, a man named Spencer Radcliffe. Radcliffe was oily and overtly charming, but his eyes held a snake-like cunning. He cornered me while Damian was in a meeting. Spencer said with a slick smile, "You are a brave woman, marrying into the Blackwood family. Their history is bloody. You must be careful your husband's sins don't stain you." Before I could respond, Damian was there. He didn't appear suddenly. It was more like the shadows had simply coalesced into his form. He placed a hand on the small of my back, a simple gesture that felt like a brand of ownership. Damian said, his voice deceptively calm, his eyes locked on Spencer. "My wife and I were just leaving. Enjoy your party, Spencer. While it lasts." The threat was unspoken, but absolute. Spencer's smile vanished, and he practically stumbled backward. As we walked to the car, my whole body was trembling. In the silent ride home, I found my voice. I asked, "What did he mean? What sins?" Damian stared out the window, the city lights flashing across his chiseled face. He replied flatly, "It is not your concern." I snapped. "Not my concern? That man threatened me. Your world, these sins, they involve me now. I may have signed a contract, but I am not just a piece of property, Damian." For the first time since I met him, he looked at me. Truly looked at me. The icy mask was gone, and underneath was a flash of something raw. Surprise. Maybe even respect. He didn't say another word. A week later, I woke up to the news. Spencer Radcliffe Company had been utterly dismantled overnight. A series of perfectly timed leaks, regulatory investigations, and hostile takeovers had bankrupted him. He was ruined, and I knew with absolute certainty it was Damian doing. It wasn't just business. It was personal. That night, I didn't wait for him in my wing. I waited in his study. When he walked in, he stopped short, surprised to see me. I said, "It was because of what he said to me, wasn't it?" He didn't answer. I took a step closer. "You're not just a businessman, are you? This isn't just about money or power. This is about revenge." He finally looked at me, his emerald eyes burning with a darkness I had never seen. Spencer Radcliffe's father worked for my father. He betrayed him, stole from him, and then orchestrated a factory accident that killed both my parents. He took everything from me when I was 15. Spencer Radcliffe inherited a company built on my family's blood. So yes, Sophia, this is about revenge. Everything I have built has been to take back what was stolen and to make those who wronged me pay. The confession hung in the air between us. This was his secret, the source of his coldness, his ruthlessness. He wasn't a monster born of malice, but a boy forged by tragedy into a weapon of vengeance. My fear of him dissolved, replaced by a wave of profound, aching empathy. I saw the 15-year-old boy hiding behind the formidable man. Without thinking, I reached out and touched his hand. It was the first time we had ever touched outside of a public appearance. He flinched but didn't pull away. I whispered, "You don't have to carry it all alone." From that night on, everything changed. The silence between us was replaced by tentative conversation. He started coming home for dinner. He told me about his parents. I told him about my father. I found that beneath his polished, dangerous exterior was a sharp mind and a dry, unexpected wit. The mansion started to feel less like a cage and more like a sanctuary. My grandmother came home, her cancer in remission, her laughter once again filling my mother's small house. I had saved her. But somewhere along the way, in the gilded cage I had chosen, I had found a man who needed saving, too. Our marriage was a transaction, born of desperation and strategy. But it had become something else entirely. It was a partnership, a fragile hope growing in the shadow of his dark empire. His world was still dangerous, but I was no longer afraid, because I realized I wasn't his prisoner. I was his secret's keeper, and maybe, just maybe, I was his redemption.